Well, thanks everybody again for checking out this edition of the Hubs Creator Meetup, where we share knowledge around Hubs, Spoke, Blender, and help the community create better Hubs experiences. So I'm happy to introduce today's presenter. He is a WebXR wizard, the author of the Hubs Client Bot, creator of VRTeast, a web-based virtual reality creation tool that has too many features for me to list here, and a seriously skilled banjo player. Let's make some emotes for Zach.
All right. Well, thank you for that introduction, and thanks for inviting me to give this talk today. So real quick about me, I'm a professional software engineer. My day job is working on medical devices, but in my free time, I like to experiment and play around with WebXR and virtual reality and stuff like that. So a lot of these, the projects that I've been working on are kind of fun, spare time kinds of thing. And I'm really happy to get them to a point where I can share them with you today. All right, let's see. If you haven't already picked up your copy yet, there's copies of the notes and the outline for the talk that I'm going to give right over here. Here's one for the audience, if you can catch it. Or feel free to go grab your own. Yeah, so the talk today is going to be about creating assets, 3D objects from within virtual reality. You may have heard about my web app VRTeast, which is a virtual reality image editor, texture editor, 3D surface editor. I created that because I really enjoyed making 3D things using tools like Tilt Brush or Oculus Medium or Gravity Sketch and those kinds of tools. But then when it came time to try to apply textures to them, it would be a pain in the neck because I'd have to go into use something like the GIMP, and then I'd be clicking around with my mouse trying to get different opacity levels and stuff like that, or use try to find a tablet that worked in my closet. It's kind of a pain in the neck. And I said, well, I have a virtual reality headset. This should be able to do this. Why can't it do this? And I couldn't find anything that could do 2D image editing the way that I wanted it to. So I started developing VRTeast. So this talk will be a demo of how to go from idea to textured, physically based rendering material, 3D object that you can drag and drop into Hubs almost entirely in virtual reality. And I'll be demoing that in my headset today. So before we go any further, just by a show of hand emojis, or if you want to say out loud, I'm wondering what the audience is like here. Are you folks programmers? Raise an emote if you're a programmer. Right. Cool. Me too. What about artists? Any artists here? Awesome, great, love to see it. What about like designers or product managers or product people? Anybody here? All right. Cool, awesome. And anybody I missed that wants to say what they're up to? No? All right, cool. So I'm going to switch over my virtual camera here to. All right, cool. So you should now be seeing you can see the top of my head, my headset. So I'll be going to virtual reality now. Won't be checking the Hubs chat terribly frequently. So if anybody has a chat that they want to type, if somebody else in the audience could read it, that'd be super helpful. All right. So the first step that I'm going to outline is actually making the 3D part of the thing. And I am going to use Adobe Medium to do that. You can use, I can see my 3D library. There you go. You can use any kind of tool that you want to. I'm choosing a Medium today just because it's pretty handy and it does all the stuff that I wanted to do. But you can use Gravity Sketch. You can use even Tilt Brush. Just double check on the desktop. You can, all right, and make sure you can all see the scene. All right. Yep. Okay. So the first step with, oh no, they changed it. This is not, oh, here it is. All right. So the first step with creating your object, obviously, is to come up with a concept for what you want to do. This can take a lot of time or a little bit of time, or you can noodle around and be creative. I front-loaded all of that work before the talk and decided that since it's Halloween season, I just want to be able to see, folks. Since it's Halloween season, I would show you how to make a vase to hold candy for trick-or-treaters in virtual reality. And so if you have virtual reality trick-or-treaters, you can set outside this virtual reality vase that they could come and try and take virtual reality candy from. All right, so now that we know what we're making, we'll get to the process of actually doing the 3D modeling. So I'm here in Adobe Medium, used to be Oculus Medium. I'm not going to go into too many details about how to use it. You can, there's lots of great tutorials, lots of great information about Adobe Medium, or Masterpiece VR is a similar kind of program, or Tilt Brush, or any of the other virtual reality 3D modeling programs. So let's see. So I'm going to create the face shape here. Oops. Now, all this being said, just note, I'm a programmer. I'm not a professional artist, or really much of an artist by any means. And I'm going to be going kind of quick for this demo. So don't judge the quality of the output by the quality that I'm putting into this at the moment. But so let's see. So we got kind of a rough vase looking-ish shape. Let's see. So we want to smooth it. Okay. It looks pretty smooth. Oh dear. You know what? Let's just start over. Let's do this. Okay, start with just a circle, and we will grab it and move it down like that. Okie dokie. Okay, so now we got kind of a V shape. Let's just cut out the top here. Okay, so now we got a place to put our candy. And let's go over here. Oops. And make some candy. That's really big. Let's use a nice little capsule shape. And let's do top for the wrapping. Get swirly. Or maybe not. some manual swirlings in order. All right, so now we've got our candy, and let's maybe add some handles real quick. There we go. And just to get in the Halloween spirit, let's add something creepy to this. How about some feet? There we go. There's a foot. And here's another foot. Let's maybe angle this a little more. Okay, so now here's the pretty much this is as far as we will go with our 3D modeling tool. You can see we've got the geometry, and we'll worry about the colors and the textures and all the fine details in VRTeast. All right. So now that we've got it, our next step is, well, we should always save it. Save early and save often. We'll just call it vase. And save. What's going on? I'll double check the hubs. Okay. So now that we've got our 3D model, we need to export it into a format that we can bring into VRTeast. With WebXR or Hubs models, it's really important to have as low a triangle count as you can while still retaining the shape. I think we can probably drag this down a little bit. 4,000, 5,000 triangles seems like it should be reasonable. We can fill in fine details and stuff with normal maps and textures. So let's just export it like this. We'll keep the vertex colors because I'll show you how to do UV unwrapping in virtual reality. So let's see, export, and put it in the Hubs Creator demo folder and export. Let's see, this hopefully will go quick enough. So while this is going on, does anybody have any questions or anything so far? It should be fairly straightforward. Again, there's lots of tutorials about this part about making a 3D object already.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said you're using Oculus. Is the tracking like enough to get kind of fine movements and kind of detailing when you're doing modeling?
Yeah. So I'm using the Valve Index at the moment, but I've had no trouble with using. I've used the Rift S and the Rift to do modeling in Medium and other tools, and I've had no problem with the tracking.
Okay.
Yeah. But everybody's tastes are different, so some people have had problems with the tracking. So use what feels best for you. All right. Well, this is almost done, I think. So while this is going on, I'll just mention that so while this is going on, I'll talk about VRTeast real quick. So VRTeast, I mentioned, is a WebXR app that I created. You can get to it by just going to https://vrteast.xyz. It's on your handout sheet. However, WebXR is in a lot of flux right now, browser support and everything. You guys looking at yourself? Fun. Browser support is kind of all over the place. Things change from version to version, and so I have a package you can download with Chromium that's specifically tested to work with Steam VR for at least all the headsets that I can get my hands on, and it has a nice, easy shortcut to start Chromium with VRTeast with all the right command line flags and everything you need to get up and running. So if you have trouble remembering which things you need to disable or enable, you can just download that from the VRTeast website. However, since I already have Chromium running, I'm going to use the same instance so I don't slow everything down. So I'm going to switch over to my VRTeast tab over here. So you can see it gives you the user interface even on the desktop. And now I'm going to take that, where'd it go? I was supposed to have this up. I'm going to find out what I did with that file. This is quite embarrassing. Where did I put it? Oh, I know. Here it is. Okay, so now I've set up this folder with some pre-made stuff, and here's that model that we just exported. So now we can just drag and drop it into VRTeast, and there it is. It shows up right on our screen. The geometry gets imported, and now we launch into virtual reality. All right, so let's get the controllers to show up. Okay, so there's our object. You can see we can grab it, move it around, make it bigger or smaller, push it far, pull it closer, and great. However, our model came in without really any usable UV map. At least that's what it looks like. Let's see. So normally the way to do UV unwrapping, which is how you assign a 3D surface, points on a 3D surface to a 2D image, you would normally use something like Blender and mark seams and set up and do a kind of a semi-manual way of doing UV unwrapping, where you can use an algorithm that projects the surface based on different angles or different shapes. I set up a virtual reality focused method of UV unwrapping that's pretty quick and gives decent results. If you want really good results, it's best to use a tool that's made specifically for that, like the Blender UV unwrapper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding a bounding box unwrap. So what this will do is this will project based on the direction that each face on the surface is facing. It'll give it a different point, a different little section for the UV map. And we can make this box a little smaller, maybe not too small. And basically, we just want it to be covering most of the model. For again, this method of unwrapping UVs is not super robust, but it's pretty quick and it's cool because it's in virtual reality, and you can just move things around with your hands and eyeball it based on what you're looking at. So we'll add this overarching shape, and we'll add a smaller shape for the feet to give them some extra level of detail. Just make our box small like this. Oops. So this is a pretty experimental feature. I'm excited about it because it has a lot of potential, but as it still has a lot of potential that hasn't been totally developed, that means there's a lot of quirks and a lot of gotchas, and it doesn't always work the way I would hope it would work. But that's okay because we'll go along with it anyway. All right, so now we just click the unwrap button, and it goes and does the unwrap. So I'm going to draw so now you can see here's the UV map for the shape that we just created based on the boxes and stuff. You can clear the existing ones, and let's just clear this layer so you can see. If I were to move it, then if I unwrap again and draw the lines, you can see this whole section didn't get unwrapped. Now there's more detail focused up here. So what you really want to do using this tool, again, this is specific to this kind of tool that I made here, is you want the shape to be as compact as possible, and be really focused on areas where you want a lot of detail. So I think that looks pretty good. When there's overlapping segments like this, it'll use the most recently placed UV shape to do the unwrapping. So this looks good. Let's go ahead and unwrap that and draw. Let's clear it. Clear the layer and draw the UV lines. Okay, so now we've got, this looks pretty good. It's not great. If you used a tool like Blender, you could definitely get a much better, much cleaner UV map with less overlapping lines. You can see there's a lot of overlap in some spots. But this works pretty well for something quick that you want to be able to draw on. Let's see. All right, so now we've got our UV map. That's important because let's get rid of the shapes so we can talk about it. I wanted to do that first before talking about anything else because VRTist relies really heavily on the UV map to know where to place things or where to draw things. It's how it maps the image editing capabilities onto your 3D model. So trying to show off anything without a UV map would be pretty pointless. All right, so now we've got this map. I'm going to go over here and clear the active layer. All right, so now you can see when I point at the model, it shows the preview cursor. And if I go ahead and click, and see I start drawing and painting right onto the model surface there. You can see I've got all these layers over here, and the layers work similar to GIMP or Photoshop layers or anything like that. They update close enough to real time. You can move them up and down, delete them. There's opacity sliders and the whole 9 yards. Plenty of features there. All right, so let's see how are we doing on time? Okay. All right. Yeah. So real quick, some of the basic interface features of VRTist. There's this quick menu here, which gives you more detailed access to all of the features that you might want. Probably the most important is save. It's always a good idea to save. Let's do that now. So you can see you got to actually see get out of virtual reality to see that it worked, but you can see there's our VRT's project file that downloaded. If you're on a Quest, it'll save it directly to the browser by default because it's really hard to drag and drop files from the Quest storage onto the browser. I haven't actually figured out how to do that yet. So it just saves it to the browser by default. So some other options. These tools are really nice. You can just pick up a pencil and start drawing with it, spray paints. We'll get into all of that over time. All right, so now back to actually making a vase with candy in it. So an easy way to start with a 3D object like this, especially one that's mostly going to be the same kind of material, and the vase will be kind of dark metallic-y, but not quite metallic-y, kind of ceramic-y material. So I found this metal material from CC0 Textures. It's a great resource for grabbing lots of different kinds of textures. And I extracted the color map and the normal map. I'm just going to drag and drop those right onto the VRTeast window. Now, if I go back into virtual reality, you can see it added new layers for each of those different images that I dragged and dropped in. And that's it's not a bad start. So we'll come back to this material stuff later. Let's start adding more details. Okay, so add a new layer on top of here. Let's focus on this candy wrapper. Candy wrappers for Halloween, maybe orange and black kind of deal. So we'll start painting some colors in. Orange. Again, the quality of your UV unwrapping really affects your drawing ability. And if you're trying to do something serious with VRTeast and you want to focus on quality, I would recommend going for taking some extra time to focus on a high quality unwrap method rather than going for speed like I'm doing now. But we can still get something pretty good here. Let's see. So we've got some basic colors going in now. We have a quick color thing on our color palette over here, and we got there we go. Let's add some texture with this hatches maybe. Oh, that's really big. Just using the joystick to make the brush bigger and smaller. You can see we've got the instructions right here on the controller for you. So let's make that smaller. There. It's too much. We could just add some kind of texture looking stuff there. All right. Well, not a super convincing candy wrapper. In fact, if your child comes home with a candy wrapper that looks like that while they're out trick-or-treating, maybe don't have them eat that candy. But it's good enough for now. Okay, so all right. Also, real quick, I'll just come back to hubs. If anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to stop me. Feel free to ask as we're going along, and if not, I'll keep going here. All right, so now next step, we'll add a new layer, and we'll add some more details to make this more Halloween-y. Oops, gotta make sure that it's focused. Okay, there we go. WebXR has a lot of nice safety features built in. One is that the browser won't let it use too much resources if it's not the focused window. So you want to make sure that it stays focused while you're using it. Fun tip. All right, so now for Halloween theme, we'll paint a skull right on the front of the vase. And let's see, I've got a reference image that I'm going to use. So I go to the reference photos thing and turn on import reference. And now if I drag and drop my anatomical reference photo, voila, it appears right there. And I can look at it and try to figure out how to draw this thing. All right. For drawing, it's really nice to use some of these pencil-looking drawing tools. I'll switch to my charcoal pencil brush, get a kind of a bony kind of color. In fact, you can actually just use the color picker. So I'm going to use the color picker and pick out bony kind of color look. And now I'm going to go over here and let's see, got to raise the opacity again. And go like that. And if I was being more careful, I would probably do some line drawings first to try to trace this out or something, or try to understand the perspective of the eye sockets versus the jaws and all of that. But in the interest of time, I'm going to just go really fast and freehand. All right, so we've got rough outline. Let's use one of these textured brushes to add some texture here. Some thick paint eyeballs. And let's add low opacity, some pencil stroke shading. Let's see. That's too low opacity. Oops. That's not working. Okay. There we go. Now we can add a little bit of shading there. And it vaguely looks like something Halloween. I guess we need a nose too. There we go. Very Halloween-y. Let's add another layer for some more texture brush. Add a Halloween message trick. And treat. Oops, doesn't quite fit. That's okay. All right, so now we've got kind of the base of our artwork here. And the next thing to look at is these feet. I think for Halloween themed feet, we don't really want it just kind of melding. Sorry, come again? Oh. All right. So so we don't want the feet just melding into the rest of the vase. So let's do something different. We are actually going to make our 3D model feet using real feet. Very, very spooky, right? We'll drag and drop our photo reference again. And this time we will put them roughly where the feet are. And we will use our spray projector tool. Let's see, get maybe a silky texture thing. Get a fairly large brush. One nifty tip is turning the UI off. Makes things a lot faster. Since it's WebXR and it's running in a browser, everything you draw counts. So the less things that there are in space being drawn, the more responsive the tools that you use will be. These spray can tools use a lot of resources, so we want it to be as fast as it can. And now you can see it's just spraying right through and projecting onto our model whatever's in this image. So we can just go ahead and make our feet using real people feet. I think this is a really handy feature. I use it a lot to really quickly add different texture and detail to a model. Let's see. One of the nice things about this is if you can kind of blend it so that even if you just have this one view, you can kind of make up views. And if you're careful and if you use smoother brushes, it comes out pretty convincing. You can also use the blur and the nudge tool to help smooth things out afterwards too. Let's see. Let's just keep going here. Okie doke. Oops. More feet over here. And you get the picture. I'll leave the bottom of the feet as they are. Some artifacts here where the spray paint doesn't quite fill in all the way. We'll use our experimental special effects to dilate the layer. You can see we have all these different effects you can apply to the layer. Just dilate, which kind of just expands it and fills in the gaps. All right, so now we've got okay looking feet. I mean, they're not horrible for the few minutes that we spent on them. Again, you can do a lot better if you spend a lot more time on them. But this is good for now, except maybe we should make them zombie feet for Halloween. So we can go over here, use a low opacity, and we can use our fill brush, but use the source atop, which only fills in the part that we have already. And there we go. Now we have some nice zombie feet, and it's looking good. Let's just add some kinds of zombie-like bits and pieces here and there. We can just spray, yeah, a little more texture that makes it look zombie-like. All right, so I think this is pretty good for our base color scheme. I'm going to save it. Oops, site needs permission, allow. Thank you, Chrome, for checking with me. Okay, so, all right, so this is, I think, a good point to pause. Does anybody have any questions? Oops. Oh dear. Somebody's stolen my camera. So is that me? Oh, there it is. Anybody have any questions so far about VRTeast or modeling or texturing or anything?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, please.
All right, I was just asking that last feature of projecting images or photos onto geometry, that's within VR Artist as well?
Yep, that's in VRTeast. Yep.
It's a very nice tool.
Yeah, it's really handy. And we will come back to it in a little bit too when we talk about projecting normal maps. It's really handy. Another question was there?
Yeah, and Zach, did you just save that as a GLB?
So I saved it as a VRTeast project file, but you can save it as a GLB, which is what we'll do ultimately when we bring it into, well, I'll bring it right into this room right here once it's done. Actually,
Thanks.
if you guys want to see how it's going, let's just go ahead and do that right now. Export as GLB. Let's wait a little bit. Hello? I think I lost y'all there for a second.
Hey, we got you.
All right, let me see. Yeah, too much of everything running all at the same time.
I'm not sure if anyone else is getting audio dropouts. I am.
Getting dropouts, although I got kicked out of the room for a little bit. Oops. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Oh dear. Okay. Well, well, Hubs is not happy with sharing right now. Try again. Okay. How's it all looking? How's it looking for you? Are you seeing this jump back and forth between tiny thing and a big thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Oh.
Do you want
And
us to pin it when it's large?
yeah, let's see if we can. Okay. No.
Got it.
Got it? All right.
Nice
Cool.
pin.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much. The things you find out during demos, right? All right. So let's see. Go. See if our GLB file uploads or not. Might be too much in the room already going on. Oh, there it goes. Hey, look at that. Oh, I think we got more coming. So, well, there's our vase so far. You can see we made it all in virtual reality.
Nice. Did you just load 2 into the room, or did it automatically spawn?
No, I think I accidentally dragged it twice. Got impatient.
No worries.
Cool. So that's where we are so far. There's a few more cool things to go to finish this up and make it give it a little extra stuff. If y'all are up for it, or if you just want to call it a night here, do question and answer, and
No, this is great. I'd love to see more.
all right, awesome, cool. So you can see looks pretty good already, right? We've got our colors, we've got our details, we've got some kind of little bit of texture, but one of the nice things about especially using this GLB format, now that we're all looking at it and talking about it, is that it gives you the whole material right in the single file. So we can encode, yes, animation is possible. If you look over to to my left, you see the flying bird mug that I made with VRTist using the Mozilla Hub's UV scroll component. That's all encoded in the GLB file itself, thanks to the Mozilla Hub's extension. If you get too close, you'll notice some graphical artifacts. I have a merge request open for Hubs to fix that. Hopefully it gets fixed soon. The dancing lady is actually not a UV scroll. It's using typical skeleton and skinning, just like traditional 3D animation using Blender or something. I actually did create the animations in VRTist using a very experimental skinning and rigging system that I built into VRTist, where you can place the bones in 3D and use these same drawing tools that we've been talking about to paint the weights as textures and then the vertices get weighted to the bones using the textures as weights. I'll maybe show that if we have time, but it's kind of brittle, really experimental, and breaks a lot. So I don't have that as the top of the things to show off right now. But it's possible. It's all possible, and these tools could be a lot better with time and effort. I think there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of potential in virtual reality for creating things in general, and I'm really excited about it. And a lot of it is just a matter of doing it, which is what I'm trying to do with the artiste.
That's all really, really nice.
Thank you so much. All right. So let's get back to our vase. All right. Yeah. So you guys can see it there. It looks good. But we really wanted to take this to the next level. And the way to do that is to use materials. Right now, by default, when you just import a basic 3D shape like we did with this OBJ file, VRTist will use what's called matte cap shading, which just uses the shape of the object, doesn't apply any lights or anything like that. You can also use flat shading, which is what you will see if you look at the model on, say, an Oculus Quest or something like that. There's no shape information conveyed at all. It's helpful sometimes to be able to see it, though. What we really want to do is use 3D shading, which has light information and texture information, roughness and metallic and all of that. So we'll switch to 3D shading, and you can already see it reacts to lights now here in VRTist. This is all well and good, but for it to really pop, what you want to do is use an HDRI image-based lighting. I have one that's built into VRTist if you use the preset lighting environment. It takes a little while to load, and now you can see we've got this environment all around us, and and now the environment is what's lighting our vase here. You can see over here it's bright, so it comes in bright over here on our model. You can see over here it's a little darker, so it comes in a little darker. You can also drag and drop pretty much any HDRI you want. HDRIhaven.com, you can see it on your sheet, is a really great resource. They have some really incredible HDRI images for free download. And it's really great. So I'm going to use, I'll just show a few different ones here. I think I still have that up. I moved around too much. Text. HDRI. So here's some of the HDRI files that I downloaded from HDRI Haven. Let's see. So I can bring in maybe a cloudy day kind of thing. And now you can see.
Sorry, the image shrunk again, the video.
Oh,
I think we lost our frame, yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Just going to stop streaming for a second. Okay. Okie doke. Looks like it's back. All right. Let's put the controllers back on. Oops, there's more. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, cool. So now you can see, oops, I got to switch back to our tab. And that's possibly something else that's doing it too, because I'm running Chromium for Hubs and VRTist. If you're really into it, you can probably use Metachromium and be in both places in virtual reality at the same time. I've tried it, but it gets kind of slow and probably too laggy for a demo, but it's really cool. But anyway, so yeah, so HDRI Haven, you can see we've got this really nice, pretty field that we're in. I just added a wooden floor. If you don't like floating in space, it's an actual 3D object that kind of anchors you here. I kind of like being able to see through and see the grass and stuff. There's all sorts of HDRIs, and they change the lighting, change how it interacts. So really nice. I'm going to use this one that I found that I think will go good with the Halloween theme. It's nice and dark. You can see we've got a bright light over there. And we've got some controls. You can change the exposure if you want, change the background. These levers are kind of fun to play with. Makes you feel more like virtual reality. Right. Okay, cool. So now we've got some lighting effects and some environment to map onto our object, which really is starting to let us see what the material will look like in these kinds of conditions. So now that we can see what's going to happen, let's actually make what we want to happen. All right. So we've got our colors, and we've got a base normal map. Next, we want next most important thing is probably roughness. So let's add a layer, change its mode. We've got all these different kinds of modes, which mostly correspond to canvas operations. So VRTist at its core is all based on HTML canvas, and all of the drawing operations that you can do with HTML canvas elements. So these are all the different ways you can combine canvases. Hence, they're all the different ways you can combine layers. Except for over here, you have the different texture maps that change how the material is rendered. VRTist is built with A-frame, which is built on top of 3JS. So you get all of the ones that are supported by the 3JS materials. So next, we'll do roughness. You can see we've got a transparent roughness map. So now we've suddenly got a really glossy, smooth base, which is probably not quite what we're going for. So we will maybe make it, so this is roughness. So high roughness means, so light colors fill in the roughness map means that it's really rough, just like that. And dark colors means it's not rough at all, so very smooth. For a vase, the default, we probably want, yeah, something like that, a little medium. So that's good, but maybe not all of our features are like that. So we want to set some of it to be more rough. So let's go to our brush, and let's set, definitely the candy shouldn't be super smooth. That's kind of weird. So let's just set the roughness here. You can see as we draw, it's drawing into our roughness map. This color that we're drawing is going into the roughness map, but it's actually updating the map as we draw. So you can see it's getting more and more rough where we draw, which is what we want. Awesome. The feet too should be a little, not super totally rough, but kind of somewhere in between. In fact, they should probably have a little texture to them. Let's see. So we'll use this bumpy brush. And you can see over here where our feet are on the UV map, and we make them. There we go. Some nice mixture of rough parts and not rough parts, which is what you expect if you ever feel a zombie's foot, right? There's parts that feel kind of rough and parts that don't, or at least I suppose so. Never felt a zombie's foot. Okay, and maybe we want to make our skeleton there stand out a little bit, so we'll make it rough. And nice easy way to do that is with the same pencil that we used to draw it. We'll just draw it in there, just like that. There. Now it kind of looks like it's made out of some other kind of material than the rest of the vase, which makes it stand out a bit, which is nice. Great. Let's see. So along with roughness is metalness. which determines how metally something is. Under its core, it changes a whole bunch of physical parameters about how the light reflects and stuff like that. But I forget all of the math involved, and I wouldn't take the time to explain it even if I did know it. So suffice to say, transparent or dark colors, low values, mean that it is not rough or not metal. It's more like plastic or something. And while higher numbered values or more opaque means it's more metal, it's more shiny, more reflective. You can see it's reflecting a lot more things here. And for the vase, again, we probably want kind of looking at this roughness map, and maybe just the inverse of this would be a good metalness map. So duplicate the layer, make it metalness, and let's use our effects again to invert the color. There we go. And now we've got, again, our skull on top stands out pretty well. And maybe that's a little too metally. Let's just adjust it. There we go. And I think that looks like a pretty convincing kind of ceramic-y vase kind of thing. I think maybe our feet could use a little work. So far we've had all this this kind of base normal map that we've used. One feature of using this projection brush that's really handy is you can even use it to project onto these different maps. So I found from CC0 Textures, I found one of their leather textures. And I am going to drag it in, make sure my references are enabled. I'm going to drag this normal map in as a reference photo. So now that I have it up here as a reference photo, I can take it and resize it and use it with my spray projection tool and make sure I'm editing the normal map. Yep, over here. And let's see, make these feet be more bumpy. Let's see, I can change the scale here. Make sure that I've got my opacity. Let's see, there's a lot of complication that goes into how these spray cans work. I wish it could be less complicated. Maybe someday I'll figure out how to make it less complicated, but there's different resolution settings that you can use. I think for the normal map, it'll work best at high resolution. Let's see. Let's see, it's not working as well as I would have hoped for the demo.
We lost the stream there. Or
I did it. All right, that's good because this this part of the demo isn't working anyway. It's kind of coming through. All right. So I'm still seeing the stream showing on my screen. Is anybody else seeing or not seeing the stream?
Yeah, back up here.
Yeah, it works now.
See it? Okay, awesome. Great. Yeah, so I think I mentioned that VRTist is one of my hobby projects, which means that sometimes it breaks and sometimes things don't work as well as I want them to work. But you can kind of see it's kind of projecting some of the normal map onto the foot here. Let's check this. Different brush. No, in any case, it's one of the things that usually works is you can project normal maps just like you can project colors from reference photos. Let's see. Yeah, it's looking a little more leathery. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, so that's that. All right, so now we've got some metalness, we've got some roughness. we've got some normal map features. And let's try it one more time. It's updating a little bit. Let's see, what else can we do here? We can do an emissive map. And let's change this to emissive map. And now we can make our trick or treat really pop. Whoops, that's a little bit too big. And emissive maps are not affected by lighting, so you can still, or lack of lighting, so you can still see them even if it's dark. So they pop out a lot more. Trick or treat. There you go. And okay, and give her skeleton eyes there like that. And I think that's looking pretty good as far as a vase for trick-or-treaters go. So now that you have that, is there anything else I'm missing that would be good to talk about here? I don't think so. So now that you have that, you can always save it. All right, cool. I always get a little nervous when it takes a long time, but it's saved. And now the next step is, of course, bringing it into hubs or to Spoke. And the way you do that, as we talked about, is with this GLB export. You can also export PNGs if you're just doing just a 2D drawing, or if you just want to export for just the map for importing into another program. There are some other options here too in settings. Sketchfab, you can export directly from VRTeast into Sketchfab, which is great for mobile devices where doing file manipulation is kind of painful. You can change your project name here. Since we imported a 3D model, it takes the name of the 3D model automatically, or you can change the resolution. If you make the resolution too big, it slows things down as you edit it, so it's best to keep it 2048 by 2048 or lower generally, but it depends on your computer. If you have a really beefy computer, maybe you can push it a little bit farther. So let's see, now we can go ahead and export as GLB. And we should have a new GLB file coming up. There it is. And let's see if we can go ahead and bring it in here. All right, so I drag and drop it, and it should come along pretty soon. So at this point, you can either say, "Wow, this looks great. This is everything I wanted out of a Halloween vase for virtual reality trick-or-treating," or you can say, "You know, this is cool, but there's so much more that can be done." At this point, you've got a 3D model file, you've got textures, you've got UV maps. You could bring it into Blender, you could bring it into anything else. So I guess it came into hubs pretty small. So yeah, so like I was saying, you might want to bring it into Blender and fix up the dimensions or something like that. Right now, VRTeast can't do everything that Blender can do. I don't know that it ever will be able to do everything that Blender can do. Probably shouldn't try to recreate it all, but you can see it's got some metally textures. It's got some rough textures. It's got some emission textures, all right there, all created within virtual reality. We didn't have to go to Blender. We didn't have to go anywhere else. Maybe we had to do a little bit of dragging and dropping. Excellent. Thank you for making that bigger. Yeah, so all within virtual reality, which I think is really cool because I think there's a lot of expressive freedom that you have in virtual reality. From here, if you wanted to keep going in virtual reality, there's a few more things you can do. Let's see how this will go. Give it a shot. Let's say you wanted some animations in here. Not sure what to animate per se. Let's just say there's something glowing around the skeleton. Let's say the skeleton moves. Maybe too complicated for now. Let's just put something new in. So VRTist has both 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional animation tools. To pull up the 2D animation shelf, and then you get these frame layers. By default, there's only one frame, which is great for static stuff, but let's make something animated. A really fun way to animate 2D things or animate surface things on VRTist is if you just create a whole bunch of frames. You can see we're creating frames now. This layer has 4 frames. Let's do 4 frames is pretty good for now because UV scroll has its limits for texture size. So now if you start playing it, you can see it's scrolling the frames. Probably want to play faster by toggling the UI. And now let's just add some like kind of fiery effects. You can see as we draw, it animates right on the thing.
Oh my God.
It's really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with how this came out. Cool. So we can use all of the tools at our disposal. Let's add some kind of thick paint tool, maybe darker here. Actually, these UV, never mind. These texture brushes at the bottom don't work with animation super well. I'm working on it. It'll come around someday. Let's do this instead. Go. Let's see. There we go. And then you can use our nudge brush to nudge it back and forth. That didn't help much, but so there you go. So now we have an animated trick or treat face. You can also animate the textures here. Let's animating the normal map might be cool. Hope it works. Let's just pause, go back to the beginning. Let's duplicate the frame this time. 2, 3, 4. We'll keep the number of frames the same across layers. It doesn't have to be the same, but it'll be easier for exporting with UV scroll. So now let's do the same thing again. Play pause. And now let's use our nudge to kind of nudge things. No, it is broken for UV maps. Well, add that to the bug list. Oh no, it's going. There it goes. Cool. So you can see the bumps are starting to jiggle around a little bit. Yeah, it's not as cool an effect as I was hoping for. Let's see. But in any case, you can animate all of the texture maps too, which can let you do some cool stuff. This work better. Yeah, shimmering a little bit. Yeah. You can see it's kind of looks a little like it's alive or something. You can also do a frame by frame animation, where you can just edit each frame individually and then go to the next one. It's got onion skinning too. It doesn't make much sense with for the normal map, but let's see this one over here. Can do onion skinning. Let's see if it comes through. Yeah, so you can see the next frame and the previous frame, which can be helpful if you want to add more stuff at just the right time or in just the right spot. You can delete frames, duplicate frames after it's already been drawn. Lots of handy things. You can duplicate layers with the frames and stuff like that. You can change whether it's source over. Maybe you just want to apply a color burn effect. Let's see. Yeah, so now it's only applying this color burn effect. All of these different normal kinds of color overlay tools all work. Yeah, so now you've got this animation, and you can export it. You can export the frames individually. You can record a movie, a GIF, or Hubs has this really cool thing now. Just gonna save it just for peace of mind. And again, this is under active development, and occasionally it crashes. Better not to lose things. So Hubs has this really cool thing that they implemented where you can scroll the UVs, the UV map, to give kind of an animation to your models. If you scroll each increment by the size of your texture, then you get kind of like a flipbook style animation, which is what I've added to VRTist here. You select the number of frames that you want, and you click this with this big experimental disclaimer. I'm gonna go ahead and click it anyway. But once you click this, basically export and then don't do anything else because it messes up all of the UV maps. I try to put it back, but it's really risky. Yeah, so you can see it cloned our textures 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So now as the UV map scrolls through, it'll hit each one and display that texture. And we export it as a GLB, and we cross our fingers because this is brand new and hasn't been thoroughly tested yet. And we got our GLB, so that's a good sign. And okay, everybody, fingers crossed. And while I was testing this, I accidentally found a bug in Hubs that would crash the client for everybody in the room if you import the wrong kind of file. All right, let's see. Anybody can see? Doing it? I can't see. Oops. Yeah, it's animated.
It
something
worked.
or other. Kinda. Mostly. Yeah, it definitely works. It's animated. There you go. 2D animation into Hubs on your 3D models entirely in virtual reality. No text editing, no Blender even, just all virtual reality.
Incredible tool.
So I'm pretty happy about that. Good kudos to the Hubs team. That was a super clever idea with the UV scroll. There's a few other things I can touch on real quick, just so folks know where they are. Since we did our UV scroll, the model is pretty much shot, so we can't really do too much with it now. The right thing to do is to refresh the browser and to load your save file. Unfortunately, VRTist, it takes a little while to load each layer, and then we're already getting a little long here, so I'll just forge ahead knowing that things are kind of broken. Real quick, so we've been working with layers right now, which is great. Layers are great. They're fun. They're easy to use. They make a lot of sense. VRTist also has this node compositing system. If you use Blender materials, where'd it go? All our nodes are down there. If you use Blender materials where you click and drag input and output nodes, you're familiar with the general concept. You can see here's our output. Our main output is this green one right here. So let's just drag our layer. If we put it there, now you can see whatever is connected here gets put to the output. Where's our lower layers? you can connect it straight to the maps here. To do, let's find all right, this looks like color. So we can also use these composition nodes. So we can connect this node here, and we connect it to the source overmap, which makes two nodes, one which combines them using whatever combination here. We also have, let's see, FX nodes. Where to go? Let's just make it. So you can choose special effects to apply and to do. And let's see, so now we've got blur, and these special effects apply to, it all gets recalculated and updated live. So it will apply the special effects as you draw it. So that's our blur. That's there isn't going to really help us. Let's just invert. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, so you can see we're applying a special effect, and as we're drawing, the special effect gets applied. This whole node chain gets recalculated as needed, and you can use these effects. You can see I can connect this effect to any of the other maps. Let's do metalness map. It's not going to make any sense, but you can see it'll apply metalness now based on this node pipeline. We can add more composition nodes, and we can connect them in any order. We can add offsets if it works. So we need to grab the canvas to apply an offset. I guess it's not working right now. There's, let's see, output nodes that we can configure to have do solo output. Let's find it. Oh, yeah. Oh, and so now it only shows this one. And we have multi-draw broadcast and receiver nodes, which are the VRTist way of doing multiplayer. So if I connect this node to this layer to this input node here, anybody else can connect using a receiver node, and they will receive real time as I draw the input to this node on their node if the names match. So you can do multiplayer real-time drawing across the internet. It's pretty experimental, and it needs a lot of polish, but it works. You can do it multiplayer. Let's see. There's an AI style transfer node you can do. It's kind of fun, but it's really slow and doesn't work super well. Reference photos. There's all sorts of things you can do with reference photos. I put this in specifically to learn how to draw. It can flip through your reference photos, so you can do timed quick sketches. It's really fun. There's also this 3D animation tool. I switch back to layers. This experimental 3D animation tool called Skeletonator. Let's see. Oh, and it is so experimental, I think it crashed. Yeah, cool. So I am not going to show you the 3D rigging and skinning and 3D animation system because it doesn't work right now. But that's okay because it will work again soon, I promise. But that's why it's hidden in all those menus. You can see the lovely VRTist crash failure mode where it just kind of hangs there. If you are programming inclined, you can see I have an uncaught exception in the main render loop, which totally kills everything, which is great. I don't know if I mentioned, but VRTist is an open source project. So you can, if you go to VRTist, you can go and scroll down and get to the source code here on GitLab. You can file issues. I'd love it if you file issues if you find bugs. That would make me really happy. You can also submit merge requests, which would make me even more happy. If you feel inclined to contribute code, you can read through the code if you want. Along with this, I've also put together the A-frame VRT toolkit. If you're a programmer, it basically has all of the components that I use to make VRTeast packaged as a standalone package with API documentation. So if you like my toggle button, you can just import the toggle button into your own projects. If you like my shelves or whatever you like from VRTeast, pretty much you can bring into your own projects. That's all here. And yeah, so if you went back to VRTeast now, you can drag and drop our projects, a nice phase, and it would load everything right back up where we left it when we saved. You can do everything from the mouse and keyboard too, which is mostly how I test. But it's not as nice as using a VR headset. I don't think there's really anything else to show at this point. There's some nice presets if you click the more button, and you can also see them here from the documentation. Loading any of these gives you a nice quick start to doing what you want to do. And you can explore those if you want. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much everything, believe it or not. I can't think of anything else to show off at this point. It's getting fairly late here for me. So I'm going to say that is VRTeast in a nutshell, and see if anybody has any questions or anything else they want to know if it can do that I'm forgetting about, or if you have any ideas or suggestions. Oh, the other thing I would say is I'd love to see people making art with VRTeast. Feel free to post to Twitter, tag me, or hashtag VRTeast, or feel free to file an issue on GitLab saying I made this cool thing and I'd love to add it to the gallery, or put it in a Hubs room and show it off on Hubs. Uh, there's no link, there's no dev fund. Again, I'm doing this in my spare time because I want it to exist. If you want more of this, the best way to do that, the best would be to make art with VRTeast and let me know about it. That would inspire me to keep going. Yeah, if you have money that you want to give away, there's lots of charities I can recommend. Lots of people who would do much better things with it than I would. Yeah. So
I have some questions. Sorry.
Go for it.
Yes. So thank you so much for the great presentation and amazing tool. Really opened up a lot of ideas for me. You mentioned before you can do export directly from VRTeast into Spoke.
No, so you can't go directly into Spoke. Eventually, I might be able to spin a custom Spoke client or something like that. But right now, you have to download it and click and drag the GLB. What you can do, what you can do is export directly into Sketchfab. So Sketchfab is basically an online 3D model repository. It's really great. And you can go directly from Sketchfab into Spoke as well.
Okay. I have like 3 more questions, so I could carry on if no one else has another question. Is there a pixel limit for the image projection tool?
Actually, there is. It is 4096 by 4096 for the image projection tool, because of the way that the projection is calculated.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't found a way around that yet, but you can try it with bigger images. First of all, remember that this is all happening inside of a browser, so you're going to need a pretty good GPU and everything to be able to keep up with larger images. But what will probably happen is that the pixel resolution of the projector will just space out the pixels more and more and more as the image gets bigger. And you'll have to correct that with the dilation effect or with blurring or something like that.
Okay, 2 more questions. The UV scrolling aspects that you use, it's the increment, right? The kind of increment function. Is it possible to have the kind of UV scroll, as in like, the slow sliding of a texture, kind of like a creeping. Does that work too?
It's not in VRTist at the moment.
Okay.
You could edit the file. You could edit the GLB, export it to GLTF, edit it, or bring it into Blender.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess
I mean, there's
the
no,
easiest to-
there's no reason why not, but I haven't found it didn't seem like it would fit the tool so far. But if you have a use for it, then it's easy to add. Just feel free to drop an issue on the GitLab page.
Okay, and you started off in medium, and then you kind of like with to go ball of clay type effect, and then you edited it in VRArtist. Can you just start from scratch in VRArtist?
No, you can't at the moment.
Okay,
So it's a image editing and texturing tool. It's not a 3D modeling tool.
okay,
Maybe someday, but part of the reason is there's a lot of really good virtual reality 3D modeling tools out there, and I couldn't make something as good in WebXR, especially not competing with the well-funded and highly competent teams at some of these other behind some of these other apps.
oh yeah, you definitely like choose your battles.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see this as being a really amazing tool for photogrammetry. Actually, that's
Mhm.
my kind of workflow. And 4K
Yeah.
texture is not it's not that low. So
Mhm.
it could give you some interesting options for customizing photography onto geometry. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, so if you look, I guess to my right, to audience left, there's this a wooden instrument. It's a wooden banjo that I actually built with wood and assembled in my home, and I tried to scan it using Meshroom, photo photo photo. Too much talking. Tried to scan it using Meshroom.
Yeah.
Um, and it didn't come out very good. So I used the Meshroom, uh, the really rough mesh that it generated, and used Adobe Medium to sculpt a matching mesh with the same dimensions, and then used VRT to project these images onto the textures. So this was kind of generated using that kind of 3D scanning to VRT's workflow.
Oh, yeah, so nice. I noticed the cup with the animation on it, and I was like dying to ask you how you did it, and you've explained it. I also encountered this same problem where the UV scrolling tends to kind of break up the surface of the image, like static on TV, but it's
Yeah,
also quite nice. But yeah, it's not ideal
yeah,
for every situation.
yeah. I've got I put a pull request into the Mozilla Hub source code, and hopefully they accept it soon to fix this issue. It's a numerical precision issue with the way that they have the scrolling implemented at the moment.
Well, thanks again so much, Zach. We really appreciate you sharing everything today, and I think it's gonna definitely have some more people checking out the artiste.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Thanks for all your time, and thanks for letting me show off this thing that I've been working on. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Have a good night.